You're listening to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor, powered by bbbgive.org. Here we explore the motivations that form the basis of giving and service. We inspire generosity and celebrate the transformative effects that giving and service have on the human spirit and on community. The conversations featured on the podcast also uncover giving strategies that educate and provide tools to help listeners make impactful gifts of both their time and money. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is the Heart of Giving podcast, powered by bbbgive.org. Give.org is the nation's standards-based charity evaluator, and it's your one-stop source for information on giving and reports on the most asked about charities. I'm Art Taylor. From time to time, we like to take a look at organizations that are serving our veterans. And today, we're going to do that with our guest, Mike, who is the founder of Team Red, White, and Blue. And Mike is going to talk with us about the great work that this organization is doing to help veterans. And let me just give you a little background. Mike is a 2002 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he was commissioned as an officer and went on to serve 3 combat tours with the 1st Cavalry Division and the 3rd Special Forces Group. Mike continues to serve the nations as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserves, assigned to the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he is an assistant professor. He is also the author of Lead Yourself First by Bloomsbury Press in 2017. And he's also a farmer. He lives on a 32-acre farm in North Carolina, where he and his wife, Genevieve, raised their 5 children. Mike, welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Really appreciate the introduction and the chance to share about Team Red, White, and Blue and about what we're doing.
Well, let's jump into it. So, Mike, obviously you had your time serving our country in the U.S. Armed Forces. And was there anything that you saw during that time that led you to say, I want to create an organization to help people who are leaving the military?
Absolutely. Yeah, great starting off point. So after my 3rd deployment, so I deployed to Iraq once and Afghanistan twice between 2004 and 2009. Then I went right into graduate school at the University of Michigan, where I studied positive psychology and leadership. And concurrently, like Facebook and social media was starting to bubble up at that time. And I was able to see and to track some of the former soldiers and service members that I had deployed with and served with. And I saw them struggle in the transition from the active duty to civilian life. And so I had some time on my hands because I was a graduate student, but I wanted to make a difference. And so I went to the local VA hospital and I asked them very simply, like, hey, if I was to start a nonprofit organization, like, what is the need right now? What is the unmet need? And really, there's a couple of things that were highlighted. One, a lot of veterans just need people in their community to connect with. They just need someone to have a cup of coffee with or talk to or go to a ball game with. And then the other one of them, which I was able to very clearly see as well and experience myself, and that is that the loss of structure and the loss of physical activity that you do when you're in the military is hard. It's really hard to have the discipline to then go on into civilian life and continue working out, continue exercising, and continue prioritizing it, because in the military, that's a part of your job description. That's what you do. And when you leave the military, a lot of men and women, that's one of the first things they stop doing is, hey, I don't need to be waking up early anymore and putting in, those exercise routines like I was. And so that's really what we created the organization about, was around connection and around health. And here we are almost 15 years later. We turned 15 years old next year, which is amazing. And we're continuing to forge America's health and wellness community for veterans.
Now, you served yourself, as we mentioned, and I'm just wanting to know, what was it that drove you to want to serve our country in this way? It's a very noble undertaking, and yet not everyone does it, but you did. What was it that was behind your service in the military?
So it started for me, I came from a service family. Service is a lot of things. It's, the military, but it's also teachers, it's nurses, it's law enforcement and firefighters, people who really, not only do they take a sacrifice in their pay, but often they put their well-being on the line. whether that's physical well-being, mental well-being, for the job that they do. And so I came from a family of that, for sure. But, not a big military family. My grandfather served in Battle of the Bulge and D-Day +3 and all that, in 1944. But neither of my parents served in the military. Didn't have any aunts or uncles that served in the military. And so it was really just the idea of, I'm interested in finding my own way of serving, in being a part of the country, in a service sort of mindset. So for me, that was really what drove me initially there. And then I was actually, we're coming up on the anniversary of September 11th. I was a senior at West Point when 9/11 took place. It was 40 miles down the Hudson River. And so that changed the trajectory of my military career in a big way. I thought going into West Point, maybe, like South Korea or Bosnia might be the most austere or challenging place that I would go. And then shortly after graduating, I was deployed to Iraq and then Afghanistan. So, that absolutely changed the trajectory of my service career. All that being said, that's what brought me there, but I still continue to serve. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves right now. And so I've still got a couple more years for sure in me to continue serving through the Army Reserves. And then the big thing here, Art, about service is that it's not just the military like we talked about. And so I found a way to continue serving through Team Red, White, and Blue. And thousands of veterans and civilian supporters have found a way through Team Red, White, and Blue over the past 14 years to serve their fellow veterans or veterans that they that live in their community. And that to me is one of the real big underpinnings of positive psychology that I learned at Michigan, that life is about what we do with and for other people. And that is congruent with a servant leadership and a service mindset and mentality. And that has just become woven into my DNA and into my mind and my heart, going back to my time in the Army, but also continuing to see the bigger picture of all the ways that we can serve our fellow man.
Mike, how did your service, particularly as you were deployed, change you?
Oh yeah, big way. For sure, I was able to up close in person in Iraq and Afghanistan see a lot of the challenges around the world. Of course, we got challenges in every country, including in America. But in many ways, right, you saw how different those challenges were in places like Iraq or Afghanistan, where there was such, at times, violence, but a lot of a lack of rule of law. And so, it gave me a deeper sense of an appreciation for America and for living, in the United States, for sure. When you're far from home, you're away from your family, your friends, the familiar, your bed, those kinds of things are not there. And so a lot of it, the deployment or, going to an austere environment like that, it creates a real sense of gratitude within you, because you see how, in many ways, how much more difficult people in those countries had it. And so that was a part of, how it changed me. And then also, there's this concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. Like when we go through hard things, when we experience trauma, when we lose people close to us, you inevitably, unless you're a robot, which no human being is, your well-being takes a hit. But over time, post-traumatic growth is the belief that we actually find meaning and purpose in the loss and in the suffering and in the struggle. And I was one of those people. So I actually grew from those deployments and saw a lot of people around me, who were growing from those deployments. And at the same time, I saw those that were struggling. And so the idea of Team Red, White, and Blue is how can we build an organization where a lot of those veterans who are growing and are thriving, that experiencing that post-traumatic growth, how can we help them to pull other veterans along that are still on the struggle bus?
Yeah. Mike, I'm really drawn to your core mission and the 4 pillars that you have around physical, mental. But the one that kind of captures me the most is what you're calling purpose. Because I think that in general, when we find our purpose, we thrive. We have a better chance of thriving and succeeding in this thing we call life. Tell me about what you do and why that's so important, why it's so important to demonstrate to others how they can go about finding their purpose.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, purpose is so huge. We talk about this a lot in the military and in service environments, how important it is to know why you're doing something. That famous quote, I'll mess it up a little bit, but when you know your why, you can endure almost any how. And so no matter what you do in life, it's going to be hard. It's going to be up and down and mistakes, and that's life. And so having a sense of purpose and knowing why you're doing what you're doing is essential to being able to persevere and to endure the downtimes, the hard times, the challenges, the setbacks. And so when you're in the military, you've got a pretty clear sense of purpose about why you're doing what you're doing. When you leave, one of the biggest things that veterans struggle with is finding that new sense of purpose that can match the sense of purpose they had while they were wearing the uniform. And it's possible, it's definitely possible, but it takes work, and it often takes time. And that's a big part of what we do at Team RWB is the focus on, hey, you matter, right? You have a purpose in being a part of this organization, not just to take care of yourself for your own good, for your family, for your coworkers, for people in your community, for the country. But like, you also have the chance to inspire other people along the way and inspire them to prioritize their health, to inspire them to go work out and do the things that we know that we need to do. And so a big part of our messaging and what we talk to veterans about is the importance of finding and rediscovering that new sense of purpose as a civilian.
Yeah. There's so many organizations that are working to help veterans, and certainly no shortage of need for sure. But yet I wonder what it was that made you say, I am thinking it's important for us to start this one rather
Yeah.
than maybe collaborate with some of the others. You saw fit to start your own. What was that?
Yeah, this is a big question that I thought about a lot. Honestly, when I got first early goings of the organization, I was very much like, do we really need to start a new organization? Or, can we, go reach out and try to be a fundraising arm or take and encourage a current organization to add on a physical fitness pillar? Ultimately, I think where I landed on this is that nobody had really thought of this idea of building a health and wellness community for veterans. There was lots of organizations that were centered around community and purpose and camaraderie, but none of them really explicitly had this focus or this mission of helping service members as they become civilians stay physically active and to prioritize their health. Now, a lot of veterans are already doing this on their own, and they didn't need a Team Red, White, and Blue. A lot of them still benefit from being a part of Team Red, White, and Blue, but they didn't need it. But there are a lot of veterans that truly need that community, that accountability, the relationships, hey, I've got a sense of purpose because I wear this Team Red, White, and Blue shirt, and I'm a part of a team. There's a lot of veterans that need that. And so ultimately, it just came down to the fact, Art, that I didn't believe, that, another organization, that was not their mission. And so they were not going to be passionate about what I was passionate about, and what I knew a lot of other veterans were passionate about, which is physical activity. So that's why we made the decision to start our own unique 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah. What do you see as the real need in terms of data or statistics? Do you have any information that would support the actual need that we have for services like this for military veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a big part. We've done a lot of research, market research over the years, and working with some big consulting firms who have donated a lot of time to help us understand this. Yeah, we see about 40% of veterans, they want to be more physically active in their life. And the number one reason why they believe they're not is because they don't have a community or relationships or a battle buddy or a workout partner or a running partner. They don't have those people in their life. And so like the data is really clear and compelling on that. The other part of the data that's really clear is that when you look at veterans 1, 2, and 3 years post transition, often veterans, as they go through time, year 1 to 2 to 3, like they usually get better on the employment front. They get better on lots of fronts. Their physical health, and then therefore often their associated mental health, gets worse over time. And this is recent data from the VA that they shared a few summers ago. So there's a lot of data talking about why this matters, and that veterans want the solutions, and they want an organization like Team Red, White, and Blue to help them to be more physically active. The challenge we face, like a lot of organizations face in this very noisy digital world, is, do they even know about us? I mean, we've been around for 14 years, and what we find is that from a market penetration standpoint, only 15% of veterans know who Team Red, White, and Blue is. And that's a very humbling stat when we got it. They interviewed, or they had a survey with about 1,000 veterans, and only about 150 of those 1,000 veterans knew who we are, right? Even though we've been around for this long. And so a lot of veterans, they know what they want and they know what they need, and it's us. They just don't even know we exist. Despite being a nearly 300,000 member organization, that's been everywhere from to the White House to the International Space Station to on the Super Bowl halftime show to a question on Jeopardy, contestant on The Price is Right. I mean, we've been in all these different places where our brand has been out there, and people are wearing this shirt around in races and workouts and just Disney World and airports. And yet still, there's a long way to go to make veterans aware of who we are, what we do, and that they are looking for exactly what we have to offer.
Well, that's not uncommon in the nonprofit sector, that good organizations go unnoticed. It is difficult to get the word out that you exist, that you're providing a particular service that people can benefit from. And while there are lots of channels, right? We see lots of social media channels. There's the more digital media. There's the traditional media, what's left of it. And yet it's still very hard to get the word out to people about the services. So
yeah,
I wouldn't feel bad about that. And 15% of the veterans knowing about you, that's still a big number.
Right. Yes. Yeah,
If
it
you
is.
look at it in
Yeah.
absolute term, 15%
Right.
of all of the veterans out there is still a big number. How many people leave the military every year?
It's about 150 to 160,000 per year.
Yeah.
So that
So
number
there
of
you go.
18, so there's 18 million veterans total. And then those that pass away each year versus those that join the ranks from active duty to veteran. So yeah, you're exactly right. It is still a sizable number, and we're proud of that. But it's just a little frustrating, that we just know that there's a lot more veterans who need exactly what we have to offer, and so we're trying to get in front of them with what we do, so that they know who we are and that they can join us and that we can be a part of their life.
Now, I see you are expanding to different places. So how many chapters do you currently have, and what's your anticipation for growth?
Yeah, we're about 150, I believe 152 chapters right now. So there's a couple things. We have what we call our digital garrison, which is our the Eagle app. It's a way that anybody anywhere in the world can plug in and can be a part of the Team Red, White, and Blue community. Think of it, it's a social network, but it's only about veterans and supporters, health and wellness, right? There's no ads, there's no data collecting, there's no marketing or selling, there's no negativity or divisiveness. It's all about veterans, supporters, health, and wellness. And so that's the first step, that anywhere in the world you can join, download the app, and you can become a part of that community and that social network of veterans and supporters. But our chapters is the bread and butter of what we do on the ground. This is where we get veterans together with people in the community, with each other, with people who support them. And those locations are always sort of in flux because they're driven by volunteer leaders. All 152 locations have a handful of leaders that are volunteers. And, volunteers go through different things in life. And sometimes with the gig economy, like they pick up more work or more jobs, and they don't have the time that they need to be able to lead the chapter, because it takes about 5 to 7 hours per week to be able to lead a chapter, in a pretty effective way. And so that's just another thing that we continue to work through, is how do we continue to bring in more veterans and supporters who know leadership, who are passionate about what we do, so that they will fight for that time in their life, for that, those 5, 6, 7 hours a week, to put on the events and to do what needs to happen for that chapter, to give veterans in the community a chance to connect. So we're always looking to grow. We're always looking to bring on new leaders and new locations. But a lot of times it's driven by the seasons and the chapters of people's lives.
Well, speaking of the training that obviously military members go through, when they leave, there's some training that they'd probably have to go through to be a good leader in your organization. How do you go about preparing volunteers so that they can be excellent leaders and fight for that 5 hours a week that you're talking about?
So we definitely start with a due diligence process of who is this person. We've got staff who talk to them, understand their why, what is the purpose of why they want to lead this chapter, and then try to guide them along the way. A lot of it is just the idea of kind of like, being there to answer their questions. Leading a chapter, it's not rocket science. Doesn't require a lot of technical skill, like how to shoot a weapon or jump out of an airplane or drive a tank. It's really, can you put on events and can you do outreach to let veterans in the community know who you are, what what the chapter is doing, and then encourage people to come on out. And so in that regard, it doesn't require like a unique or a specialized skill set to be a volunteer leader in our organization. But as we go through it, for sure, we're doing a lot of the mentorship, a lot of the, hey, we've seen this work in Omaha, or this has not worked as well in Syracuse, but it's worked really well in Detroit, and trying to share those best practices. And really, again, from a mentorship standpoint, is really more of how we develop our volunteer leaders than, let's say, a structured formulaic approach with curriculum and all that, because people often not only don't have the time for it, but ultimately, even if you're learning those leadership skills, many ways, like, they're not even all that directly applicable to being a volunteer leader in the organization, because it's literally about hosting events, recruiting other people, and getting people fired up about Team Red, White, and Blue. So
what type of events are we talking about?
Mostly physical. There is a little bit of community service, and we clean the Vietnam War Memorial, the Korean War Memorial. We volunteer in some soup kitchens and rescue missions, do roadside cleanup on stretches of highway. But primarily it's runs, it's CrossFit, it's yoga, it's hiking, it's rucking, it's running races, it's functional fitness. But it's primarily, most of the about 20,000 events you put on per year are physical fitness events in some sort of form.
Now, how about the demographics from an age standpoint? So I'm like, up there. If it were me, I would do some physical things, but there's probably some things that aren't
Totally.
necessarily appropriate for someone my age. So are you also balancing the type of physical activity to match a person's particular abilities at that time?
Yeah, great question. People come to us from all different places. Some people, have been out of shape for a long time, haven't worked out at all, regardless of their age. Some people have been hurt. They've been dealing with chronic pain. Some people are just older and they're like, I'm not going to do a burpee, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. Right. And frankly, it's not smart or wise for them to do a burpee, but there are certain things I think that everybody can do. So we're a big believer in the power of that, that 10,000 steps a day, the walking, the rucking or the hiking are things certainly that people can do. If you work your way up to a run or a jog, that's great. But honestly, we just want people moving their bodies. Like, as I say all the time, we want people breaking a sweat however they can do it. Whatever works for their schedule, whatever works for their current fitness level, whatever works for their interests. Because, in the military, a lot of it is, push-ups and sit-ups and runs and ruck marches. That's a lot of the physical activity. A lot of people don't like that. And so they get out of the military and say, I'm like, hey, good news. You don't have to do that. If you want to go do Pilates, or you want to go do yoga, or you want to go do, hiking, or whatever, like, find that thing that you can do. And that's the power of our digital garrison, is that, you can participate in events and go out there and do some of these things. And, you don't need to necessarily always do it with other people. You can be out there and take a picture of yourself on your right, and you can boom, drop it into and participate in our virtual challenges that we have. And we have virtual challenges around grip strength and around plank position and around sleep and around, we do a challenge in January called Dry January. Don't drink any alcohol for the whole month of January. So we do different things around health and wellness. But specifically to your question, for sure, we know that there's some exercises that people are just not going to do. They're not interested in doing it, based on their fitness level, their age, their chronic pain, whatever limitations they might have if they've lost a leg. So there's a lot, of things to take into consideration. And we're really much more about getting people out and active rather than being really specific in terms of training people to do certain events.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also shift a little bit because I know you're also a professor, which I am also. One of the joys of my life is having the opportunity to teach at the Columbia University School of Professional Studies students in the Masters of Nonprofit Management program.
Nice.
And it is a great joy to connect with people who are so plugged into learning and wanting to grab onto some new information that can help them in their careers in some way and in life.
Yep.
I wanted to just ask you, that's also a form of serving. What do you personally get
Yeah.
from that form of service?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, big time, right? Like I get tremendous, sense of fulfillment when you can engage anybody, especially younger people, though, whether it be in high school or in college. 'Cause I teach a character and resilience seminar, to high school students. So I co-founded a private independent Catholic high school in North Carolina. So I teach a character and resilience class seminar on Wednesdays. At West Point, having taught cadets there on active duty and as a reservist, and it's just such a joy, as you know, when you engage people of any age, but especially those that are in their youth and their brains are forming and they're figuring out their future and all that. I mean, it's not only is that service, but that is just a real rewarding thing to be able to do, to know that you made a breakthrough and you helped a young man or woman figure out something in their life. And it's teaching is right there in that realm, in the wheelhouse of service.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to just also just comment on the things that you're doing organizationally.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen, for instance, through stories, the impact that you're having on some of the veterans that you're
Oh yeah.
working with?
Absolutely. Yeah, we see it a lot. We see it in the Digital Garrison, our app. We hear about it online and in person. So there's a lot of ways we've been impacting veterans' health in a positive way. A lot of these virtual challenges that we do are ways that we reach rural veterans who are, there's not a chapter nearby them, because they don't live in a population center. And so they participate virtually. And so that's what keeps them showing up every day to put in the workout, to do the plank, to do the grip strength challenge, to do the running challenge, the steps per day challenge. So that's a big one. We've seen, people like Brandon, who basically was in chronic pain and debilitating PTSD in such a great place. And you see him every day in our Digital Garrison, in our app, posting about that. We worked with veterans with chronic pain, in a partnership with Sword Health, where they help veterans overcome chronic pain, especially like in their backs and shoulders and stuff like that. That's been, a huge part of it. We just ran a study in partnership with Google Fitbit and Inside Tracker, doing blood draws for veterans in February and July, and looking at the impact, not just in terms of self-reported well-being and health, but also in terms of looking at their blood biomarkers. There's 46 biomarkers that we've analyzed, and we've been able to prove that being involved in Team Red, White, and Blue, in many ways improves objectively, your blood work, on top of how you feel about yourself and your BMI. And so, yeah, we're partnering with a lot of folks in what we call our Eagle Alliance program to help veterans out. But beyond that, we're just thinking of new ways every time, all the time, to be able to engage veterans and meet them where they're at, whether it's an in-person, challenge that they can do, or whether it's through our digital garrison. There's all kinds of ways that we're finding ways to impact veterans. And the last thing I'll say on this is that one of the other big things we do is we challenge all of our members to do a BFG every year, a big fitness goal. And when you do that, it kind of pushes you and it compels you, all right, to keep putting in the training, even when you don't want to, so that you continue to make progress towards your goal. So for me this year, it's running the JFK 50 miler. I used to be an ultra marathon runner, haven't done it in 11 years. I will tell you for sure, you don't recover as fast at age 44 as you do at age 32. But like doing that and encouraging veterans to pursue a big, bold goal is also a big part of what we do. And we see how that transforms people's lives at times.
So now we're going to hear from one of the veterans who's being helped by this program.
I'm Ira Brown Jr. I'm the Veteran Outreach Director for Ann Arbor chapter of Team Red, White, and Blue. In Iraq, we was 11 Bravo. We did presence patrols. We also helped with training with the police officers and worked with the special forces there. On April 1st, 2007, I received a traumatic brain injury. I took a bullet to the head over here. When I came back home, it was a little bit harder. I just got done being in Walter Reed for my injuries. And it was kind of hard to get back to normalcy because, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with was more mental. Running actually is part of how I started being more active with Team Red, White, and Blue. And one of the missions they was to do was to get veterans to be more outcoming and try to keep us from staying at home, slowly dying inside. When I became part of Team RWB, it helped me actually be more healthy with my life.
Well, Mike, listen, I want to just thank you for what you're doing to help these veterans and wish your organization continued success and growth and
Thank you.
prosperity. And listen, I'm curious, do you have opportunities for family members of veterans? I guess they probably work right alongside of some of the veterans sometimes, right?
They
I
do.
know here in our house, my wife is like the veteran here. She's like
Yeah.
the general when it comes to fitness around here, and she's
Yep.
always pushing us to do stuff. I
That's
wonder if it's
awesome.
a family affair for you.
It is. It's certainly for me. I've got 5 kids. Between the ages of 4 and 14. One, my kids see me working out. That's great. My wife and I, encourage and promote them to be a part of it as well. And that's a huge part of it because we know we all need some accountability partners. We all need some positive peer pressure to get out there and to put in the work. Because as I tell you all the time, like working out's not fun. Like I don't care if someone tells you, "Oh, I love working out." I'm like, I don't think you're working out very much then because working out is not fun, right? It's uncomfortable. You're breathing heavy, you're sweating, your mind's like, oh, I'd rather be on the couch. Like it's not easy. And so we need accountability partners. And for a lot of people, that is our family, that is our friends. And so that's a big part of how we're seeing a lot of veterans in Team Red, White, and Blue show up is their family members bring them to an event or they pull them along. And so you're exactly right. Like that's a big part of our entire approach is thinking about all those relationships that veterans have, but especially the ones in their family, to be able to motivate them to go out there and to put in the work.
Well, you've got me fired up. I'm going to leave this podcast and go do 20 push-ups and some sit-ups or something, get moving
Good.
here and get back
Awesome.
out on the trail. We love walking the trails around here. So I'm going to, in the spirit of what you're talking about, get out there and start doing some stuff. Now, let me just, again, in thanking you, I wanted to just let all of our listeners know that if you're listening here and for the first time, the Heart of Giving podcast is a weekly show, and you can watch the video on YouTube, but you can listen to it on all major podcast platforms, and I hope you'll subscribe. And if you want to support the show, you can do that by going to give.org and making a contribution, and we would certainly appreciate it. You can also find on give.org the report that we've posted on Team Red, White, and Blue, and they are a BBB accredited charity, which means they are one that we would certainly support you giving some money and time to helping. So I want to thank you for checking in, and I hope we'll see you back here again next week.
You've just listened to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. To listen to our other interviews, visit heartgiving.podbean.com. That's heartgiving.podbean.com. Subscribe to our show on major podcast platforms. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Podbean's terms of service.